right, today what we're looking at is 3.6, and our goal is, it's twofold goal. The first one is I'm able to graph by determining x and y intercepts, and we'll talk about what that means, and by rearranging equations into the form y equals mx plus b. So the reason we have to do that is because sometimes our equations are not in the form y equals mxb. So we have two different choices. Our one choice is we can use x and y intercepts, or our other choice is rearrange the equation. Now we did some rearranging of equations in our last unit, so you might be more comfortable with that. However, you do need to be able to do both kinds. Okay, so first of all, x and y intercepts, what are they? Well, actually, they're exactly what you think they probably are. Okay, x-intercept means it's where the graph crosses the y-axis. Okay, for us it was the b in y equals mx plus b. And the thing is, the x value is always going to be 0. So for instance, if I know it crosses b equals -2, then I know the x value at that point is 0, -2. Okay, and the x-axis, conversely, is where the graph crosses the x-axis. And we also know that the y value is always 0. Example, if we have 3, 0. So if I actually just very quickly do a graph, what that means, if my y-intercept is -2, it means that on the y-axis, I would put a point at -2. And I know that my value of my x at that point is 0. So any x on the y-axis is going to equal 0. And similarly, for the x-axis, if I have it crossing at 3 on the x-axis, that point will have the coordinate 3, 0. And in fact, any point on the x-axis has the y-coordinate equal to 0. So remember, if I have 2 points, I could actually draw a line. And that's what we're going to do here, just very quickly. And my 2 points, and you can see mine don't really go through there, so I'm just going to have to rotate it slightly in order to make it do that. Okay, so it uses this principle that the x-intercept, y equals 0, y-intercept, x equals 0. So the opposite. So let's actually look at some questions. Okay, so the first one says, determine the x and y intercepts for the following equations. And then obviously we're going to graph because I have a graph there. Now you can see that this equation is not in the form that we like. So in other words, it doesn't say y equals mx plus b. Now a lot of you are getting very good at rearranging equations, which is super. However, let's actually do it with the intercepts. So the first thing we're going to do is, when we're actually doing these kind of notes, is we want to tell the person that is reading our information exactly what we are doing. So if I want to find the x-intercept, I want to tell the person that the work you're going to see is for the x-intercept. And all you have to do is x-int, okay? So that means the person knows what you're doing. So we learned from the last page that the x-intercept, we know that y equals 0. So we're going to let y equal 0. So by letting y equal 0, we're going to actually substitute that in. So we're going to substitute, and I'm just going to put a little arrow. We're going to sub in y equals 0 into the equation. And then after we've got it substituted in, you maybe have already thinking ahead. Sorry, as I said, it doesn't like writing over here. I probably don't have something set quite right. Okay, so that means I would have 3x minus 4 times 0 equals 12. Now remember what we're trying to find. We're trying to find the x-intercept. So at this stage, we're solving for x. Okay, and again, that comes back from our last unit. So we're solving for x. And solving for x, Might take us a few steps depending on what the equation says. So back to our question. So we end up with 3x. 4 times 0 is 0, so that's gone, and we're left with 12. Now to get x by itself, we need to divide both sides by 3, and we end up with x equals 4. So I could go along my x-axis and find 4. Okay, so that equation crosses at that point. Now what we're going to do is the same idea, except we're going to do it for the y-intercept. So again, I'm going to tell the person that y-intercept is what I'm working on next. Okay, so this is the part where you actually get communication marks. You just can't just plot anything you want. So we know that we're going to let the opposite one equal 0, so x equals 0. So wherever there is a x, we're going to replace it with 0. So in this case, it's going to be 3 times 0 minus 4y equals 12. We know 3 times 0 is 0, so we're left with negative 4y. Don't forget that sign. And finally, we need to get rid of that negative 4. It's being multiplied by the y, so we're going to divide both sides by negative 4. And what we have is y equals negative 3. So again, we're going to now take that information, find the y-axis, go to negative 3, and put our point. Okay, we have our x and our y-intercept now, so now it's just a matter of drawing our line through those points. I guess we can leave it black. That's not going to hurt anything. And there we go. Okay, so it's, although you have to do some work, it's not too bad, because in most cases we are multiplying by 0 or replacing something with 0, so it kind of disappears the one variable, so it's actually fairly easy. So let's try our second one. Okay, the same kind of process. Okay, it's not in the form y equals mx plus b. Okay, actually even looks different than our last question in the sense that here we had it equal to 12, here it's equal to 0, so everything's on the left-hand side of this equation. So again, what we're going to do is we are going to find, and it doesn't matter which one you find first. I usually just do my x first just because it's kind of in order. So my x-intercept, I'm telling the people that I'm working on. To find it, I let y equals 0. When y equals 0, I have 4x plus 5 times 0 minus 8 equals 0. So again, what we're doing is we're solving for x. It might take us a little bit of work. This is 0, and we're left with negative 8 equals 0. Obviously, we're going to have to add 8 to both sides. Now you can see why we did the last unit before this one, because we have a little bit more work to do. And finally, to get rid of the 4, we're going to divide both sides by 4, and we end up with x equals 2. So when x equals 2, so we can actually go down to our axes, x, and find the number 2. Okay, now doing the next intercept, and we'll switch colors just to make life interesting. Actually, we can switch it to any color we want. So let's do orange. No, that doesn't look good with that. You can tell I'm getting slightly sick of the same colors. There we go. That one's going to be better for me. Okay. So when we do this one, we're going to let y. Oh, actually, we won't use that one because it actually is hard to see. I want you to be able to see. Where are you, pen? Get up here. There we go. So we're going to find y-intercept. We're going to let x equal 0. So we end up with 4 times 0 plus 5y minus 8 equals 0. So 4 times 0 is gone, so we're left with 5y minus 8 equals 0. To get the 8 to the other side, we're going to add 8. And so we have 5y equals 8. And to get rid of the 5, we're going to divide by 5. Now, what we're going to end up with, obviously, is going to be a fraction, which is a little bit difficult to graph. However, I think we're quite capable. So 8 over 5, which if you changed it to a mixed number, how many times does 5 go into 8? It goes once, and how much is left over? We know that there is 3 left over, so we could put 3/5. Even 3/5 is going to be difficult for us to graph. Okay, so I'm just putting that, it's supposed to be a squiggly line there, but as I said, it just doesn't like to squiggle over there. Okay, so along the y-axis, we want 1 3/5, which is roughly there. So you can see with this method, sometimes when it's a fraction, it's a little bit harder to graph. So we have our 2 points, and so now it's just a matter of taking our line again and drawing a line through those 2 points. Notice my arrows on both sides, and it's a straight line. Okay, now I'm going to stop the video because the next part is the second kind of goal that we need to be able to do.